This power is the recording, and you can continue on without me.
Okay. Let me just do a quick check of, I've got a dual monitor, so I'm just going to share one of the screens. I just want to see what's on that screen. There's that. Is that the stuff I need? Yeah. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, everything I need's on that one screen, so I'll just share that one screen. Okay. I presume you guys can see that.
Yep.
Okay, that's the PowerPoint. What I did was I brought up Claude and ChatGPT in these windows, and I just wanted to point out that when you use ChatGPT, like for example, if I open up and just start up a new chat, there's the GPT-4 has right here advanced data analysis. This used to be called just a few months ago the code interpreter, and I think that's what it was called. And it was you could activate it. I don't know if it just activated a different LLM or if it put some I don't know what they did, but when you activated that, it had been specially trained to understand code, and it made a big difference. And now they call it the advanced data analyzer, and so now it can not only be powerful for interpreting code and generating code, it can actually be very it's working on just being able to paste in data and have it analyze it and create things from it. And then you've got plugins, and the plugins, you can just go down through here, and like here's one called Prompt Perfect. If you click on Prompt Perfect, then and I haven't been playing with it very much, so I don't know exactly when it invokes it. It's not always clear to me when a plugin will get invoked based on your prompt, but certain keywords or things you say in your prompt will cause GPT to say, oh wait, you've activated a plugin that would be good for this, so I'll do it. And so I've got, there's one activated right there. That's one of three. At this point, they only let you have 3 activated at a time. So I do Web Pilot, and that will let it go out and search the web. And then, which is kind of that, we were talking about the retrieval, the RAG thing with retrieval. I can't remember what the second term was, but then generation, augmented, retrieval, augmented, generation. So they go get the data, they put it in the prompt along with your prompt information, and then that's used to generate the model. And that way, even though it's only trained back to 2021, it can include more current information. And then you can do things like this. You can say ask PDF. You can click on ask PDF, and then you can upload a PDF, and then this thing will kick in, and this thing will analyze your PDF, turning it into something that then can be used to augment augment the prompt. So for example, I could turn these guys on for now. You can do this for shopping, all kinds of other stuff. You go to the plugin store, oh my word, it's just, it's tons and tons of plugins here. So there's all kinds of plugins for all kinds of different things, generating images and so on, diagrams and so on. So that's the whole idea of the plugins. But once you activate the data analysis, my impression is, yeah, the plugins turn off. See, so as best I can tell, the plugins are turned off. So they've kind of got they're capping you on that. It says, and this is available exclusively, it says, to Plus users. So I you know what, $20 a month, $20 a month. And it's like, this is way more valuable than a Netflix subscription to me. So, in terms of what I'm learning and playing with and so on. So I thought I would run, Sam had said that he had gotten not very good results from the idea of the port. Whoops, let's see, here we go. Of the idea of the port, code. He had one. Can you write Yoda? And I put BB typo, right? Yoda BB code to listen, and it said certainly Yoda BB, also called Yoda DB. is a high performance no SQL database, blah, blah, blah. And there it go. It wrote the mumps code. So you can just click the button. You can just click copy code and then, paste it into whatever you want. And I showed this to Sam later after our presentation. He said, yeah, Sam, you can address it. You said it was kind of close. It was close enough that maybe somebody could fix it.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly what I said. It's actually much closer. When I first did it, when I first asked that question, it gave me some Python code, basically.
Yeah.
By and large. Had nothing to do with the AutoDB, so I had no clue what the AutoDB was.
Yeah, when I first played with GPT 3.5, you had to be very, very specific and say, what I want you to do is write ANSI standard mumps code. You had to keep saying that magic phrase, or if it would wander off into writing Python or whatever. But if you kept putting that in there, you could kind of keep it in a rail, on the rails. But now, look, the prompt is that's not a really rich prompt. Can you write Yoda DB code to listen at a TCP socket? You might, Sam, there could be some maybe better prompting. If the mistakes you saw in it, you might think about how could I write the prompt a little better such that it might not have made that mistake, right? And so those are the sort of things that you can do. But then I went back and I said, can you write a unit test for this code? And it said, sure, it's a little hard, but it said, and so I wrote server-side code, client-side code, and a test driver. So it sat down and wrote this mumps code, then showed an example of how you call it. And
there is no such thing as $$ZOSF. That's pure hallucination.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there's some of the hallucination, right?
Yeah.
But it said it is a pseudocode placeholder to represent starting a new process. So yeah, there is some of that, right? So it's got a placeholder here, so you go into here and you play around, and so obviously there are some little places like that. That's why I say to right now it's a para support or a para programmer. It's just somebody that can, you got something to do, you could throw it to a new intern, have them crank out some stuff, and then you don't have to do the fully from scratch thing. And then you put it on the desk and you read the thing over. And as long as your scope is not so large that it, generate a hospital information system, you just tell it a pretty narrow scope, then it's something you can easily digest that you look at, right? That can help you out. So many cases, it depends with Chat GPT, how they keep adding to the capabilities of this, that it changes. And this is the August 3rd version down here at the bottom. They'll tell you August 3rd version. And then they'll say, okay, this is what we introduced and so on. Now, what I have is set up over here is my customization, my custom instructions, okay? And so, I'm 70 years old, I'm a programmer, mumps since 1980, blah, 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 blah about me, some hardware I have, and then down here is how would you like it to respond? I hate legalese, no disclaimers, don't talk to me at the top. I'm an LLM and I prefer more casual exchanges. Don't tell me you're an LLM. So you can just go into all of this and just tell it, I don't like this, right? And I said, I prefer to call you George, George P. Tuttle, and you can call me bro or dude or any other courteous informality. So you can have fun, with just, how you want it to be set up. And so that's kind of a neat feature. And that's not just now, that's now been made available to the public, okay? So you can, you don't have to do the other thing. So what I did was earlier, I thought it was interesting. I went and said, okay, let's go look at this one. All right. So what I did was I have in one of my mumps classes, because of the interest of time, it's an on-site class. They have to complete the exercises that week while I'm there. I can't have them writing whole programs from whole cloth. So I just here's an example program, a very early example program that I have people try to, bring up to speed. And so I give them a set of instructions. I say, this is what the code's doing. And you can see I have all kinds of fill in the blanks. They're not necessarily the right length, not the exact number of characters. They're just catch your eye. This has got to be filled in. And then they have to sort of read the code, sort of suss out what it's doing, and then kind of figure out what goes in where, right? So it's not a trivial exercise. And so I just gave it this code. Here's the prompt I gave it. I said, can you decipher what this routine is doing and how to fill in the underscore areas with ANSI standard mumps code? I've gotten in the habit of always saying that. So, and I pasted in the code. And it said, looks like you got a mumps routines intended to collect various pieces of personal information, such as name, date of birth, SSN, and so on. You know, and then it said, here's the code. And it went and filled in the code. Even to display was just the label display and a quit. That's all it was. And I did not tell it what should, you know, other than this, that it read from the comment, display this thing. And it wrote that code, plugging in all the names of the variables. Admittedly, this is simple code, you know, but for example, it picked up on this. In my particular routine, I write after the read command, I write a statement it says something like, you know, if $df FV is what you're reading for, right? So if they put in if they time out, then I go ahead and kill the variable and I throw my exit flag and I quit. Otherwise, I say if FV still exists, right? So that it didn't time out, we got an answer, and it's not null, and it does not. So I wrote it in the negative. I wrote all my tests in the negative. It does not pattern match. Then set their answer to a question mark, meaning you need help. Okay, so you should have put in a question mark clearly. I'm going to turn your answer into a question mark. And then I say, is it still there? You know, if it pattern matches question marks, I give them help. Okay, so that was filled in. That one was complete. I believe so, yeah. Sorry. Look what it did. It filled in the blanks, and then right here it said name section unchanged. So it didn't give me the whole code. It just said I'm showing you the sections where I filled in stuff. And here SSN section, you know, da da da. So I came down here and I said, wait, show me the complete program. Okay, here it is. So this is what was complete, was this section about name. So it picked up on the fact that the statement had to be written in the negative so that the question mark as a force value was the right idea. So it picked up on that and then proceeded to fill in the others, writing them the same way, that they have to be the negative. Now here's the mistake it made. Look at there. You know, I mean, it's clearly got a pattern here for what the date should look like, and yet it wrote 6N. Okay, so why? I don't know. I don't know if I could be, again, remember, I did not give it the instructions of what they were to accomplish. Had I done that, which I could try to do, but I'm thinking, I played with ChatGPT where you can, there's a plus button right down here. If you hit that plus button, you can upload a document, and then it will take that document into consideration, you know, sort of like that, you know, retrieval augmentation, sort of the idea. But it does not do very much with the document at this point. It's very weak. You ask it to analyze the document, and it's not at all. It's doing a simple search for words in the document. It's crazy. Claude, on the other hand, actually will do that. It will pay much more attention to the document, but Claude isn't nearly as good at writing code. So that's why the different models, you know, there's so many different models, and they're just their strengths and weaknesses, you know, are there. But so then it wrote all the code, and I tested the code. I was playing around testing the code. I think it was like right. Oh, let me see. Oh yeah, it was right here. I was playing around testing the code, and this is where I discovered that it had messed up, and then I put in a pattern that would match, you know, and it went all the way through and so on. So, you know, to me, that's pretty impressive, especially when the fact that this is not mainstream. This thing's much better at Python and much more, you know, mainstream languages, much better. But the fact that this thing is even able to do this without, and who knows, maybe it is being trained as deeply on mumps as the other languages, and it just simply, you know, I didn't give it enough instructions. It had to infer too much. The context wasn't good enough, right? Was kind of the idea. So, and then when I told it, it made a mistake. This is a mistake it made. It went and put the zip was a label in the original. Well, I didn't format the report. I mean, I didn't format the program real well. I just cut and pasted it in, right? So it misread a label and it didn't catch it as a label. So I told it what labels are. I said, I said, here's the original code. Oh, I told it earlier, you missed a label. This is what labels really are like. And then I pasted the code again and I said, now fix it. And because I said, tell me what the labels are. Tell me labels. And it told me these are what the labels are. And I said, good, you got it. Now here's the code with the missing labels filled in, and you can see it switched and recognized that it had lost the labels of the lines. Okay, and then I loaded the VA SAC standard, right? And I said, now let's look at this, and it just did terrible. It, you know, it talked about some indentation stuff, but it didn't catch that reads should have timeouts, and then I messed around and told it, though then I carried it over. If I'm talking too much and if anybody wants to ask a question, just jump in, okay? Some reason or other, this thing is, there we go. The window was too big and I couldn't see it above the, just a minute, let me reposition some things. This crazy control for the sharing window is blocking one of my views. Okay, so then I switched to Claude and I said, all right, Claude, I said, are you up to this, right? I said, I tried the following GPT-4 and I'll compare your results. And so then what I did was I uploaded the most programming standards, right? And then I then I said, now I'm going to give you the code and I want you to analyze it with regard to the SAC standards. I forgot to paste the code in, right? The prompt doesn't have the code in here. Look what it wrote. It totally hallucinated the whole thing. The whole thing. The routine name, labels, variables. I mean, it totally hallucinated. And I said, Claude, what are you smoking? I forgot to add the code. Settle down. So then I gave him the code, right? And then he said, oh, okay, well, this follows the name programming conventions in section 2.6.1. The routine labels are within the 16 character limit. The local variables are uppercase and so on. So, you know, but it didn't warn me about my reads didn't have a timeout. And so I said, should I be calling a separate API? Does the document tell me I should be calling a separate API? Thinking, you know, DIR. And it read through the whole thing and said, no, I can't find anywhere where it says you have to call DIR. I said, okay, should the read commands, are they missing a timeout? And good catch, you're right, they did. And it came back and proceeded to, you know, pull the explicit part of the document, even to the point of doing this, saying set D time equal to a value, and then said it can't be greater than 300 seconds. So it showed an example of reading it with 240 seconds and so on. So I'm mixing and matching models, right? And Claude is clearly much better at you pass it a document and it being able to not just, you know, scan the document for words. It understood the document and then applied it to the routine, but it can't write the code. So anyway, I thought those were interesting examples of, you know, and that's just with one. Can you imagine, you know, if you could get this thing to, you could, you know, feed the error trap results with all the variables in the stack and everything that happened, and then it can infer across all the VDL documents because they've all been put into a vector database, you know, pre-processed and put into a vector database. And then the actual details from the error trap have been augmenting the prompt and structured with JSON or whatever, you know.
So, Greg,
yeah.
It's just a quick thing I want to mention.
Mm-hmm.
One of my coworkers developed an API from VistA, so you would basically say something in VistA, and then it would go to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT would generate M code, and VistA would execute.
Yeah, you can do that. If you get into the developer API, you
Yeah,
can certainly do that. You can call into ChatGPT, have it give results, and bring them back. And that would be the way that you would do this, retrieval augmentation is exactly, or something similar to that. And then you could behind the scenes, and then you could have canned prompts with fill in the blank, just like bulletins, like mailman bulletins. They've got fill in the blank spots. And you could just have these canned prompts for different kinds of, you could even have a whole bunch of pre-built prompts with all the context needed and the fill in the blanks of the data that comes from the error trap. And then you could even steer them, kind of like an HL7 message comes in, and based on the MSH gets steered to whichever routines handle those kinds of things. You could have it, if this is kind of error, shoot it this way. If it's that kind of error, shoot it to that script. And, I just, plus, you don't even have to, this is like what I would like to see down the line eventually, hopefully, that there would be this support for people. But when you're troubleshooting a problem, many times you don't even know where to even in some cases, especially if you're fairly new to that, right? Where do I even put my foot in the door for that kind of thing? And that to me is where you can do things like, you can play the five whys. So you could play the 5 whys. You could say this: a remote user. Well, let's back up and say you are a networking expert that I am consulting because I am not one, but I am somewhat technical, right? I have a user complaining that they cannot connect to our SSH server that is port forwarding traffic to the server. Use the 5 whys creativity technique. And give me possible scenarios that will guide me where to look for the problem. Okay, let's see what happens. I don't know if I did the code. I don't remember if I've activated the code portion or not. Okay, I usually, when it starts doing that, I just scroll up to the top and get to where I don't see it filling it in at the bottom so I can read it. Use the 5 whys technique. Let's delve into this. Why can't they? Here's why number 1. Why can't they connect to the server? Possible scenarios: users not using the correct IP, not using the right port number, not the correct username or password, a network issue, right? That's a pretty obvious one. Why number 2? Why are these incorrect connection details happening? User was not given the proper instructions, blah, blah, blah. Okay, why were the settings not properly informed? Well, there's this reason why. Why were these changes not tested or documented? And, and so that's just one possible scenario, right? So it runs right there in front of me and just tells me things, and I'm thinking like, oh man, I did not even think about that, right? It's that kind of thing. To me, that you can use today. And if it hallucinates, so what? it may have said something to me that, yeah, I might even chuckle at, laugh, say, huh, why would it? And then that very thing would drag me out of my normal pattern that the reason why I'm stuck, why I can't figure it out myself, it would drag me out to say, wait a minute, right? So there's all kinds of interesting creativity techniques, right? You could say, you could tell it to do brainstorming, you could tell it to do all kinds of stuff. It's fun. It's fun to do it that way. And again, I'm just frustrated that, for example, you can say, what is the file manager? What is the VA file manager? Let's make sure we've got the code. Yeah, advanced data analytics is turned on. Okay. Wait a minute. What does it say? Custom instructions are on and can only be changed at the beginning of the chat. Correct. So they're on there. So what is the file manager API that is used to look up records in a FileMan file? Give an example of one of use that is accessing file 55, file 55, and Lego must be allowed. What do you guys think? Okay, I don't know who's here. Anybody here? Anybody?
Where is the DIC Lego variable?
Oh, it didn't catch delego, did it? It actually activated the L, right?
Yeah.
But it didn't activate the other. Very good catch. Okay, so let's say, how do I want to say it without giving it the answer? Because sometimes if you'll give it the answer, it will say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, and I don't want to do that. I want to make it dig deeper. Okay, look again into the API specifications. There is something else that must be done to correctly implement adding the Lego feature. What is that? Look what it did.
It's a good comedian.
And it left, right? So anyway, so you get the idea, right? There's some roughness, but and again, not to be used by amateurs. Don't let amateurs use this. It will speak so authoritatively that they will be misled. But if you, like you said, Sam, if you're coming new to a product, and you're wise in the ways of programming and things like that, and you've got the documentation, and that you could see how this thing could open up to you you know, I could for example, say where can you cite whoops, where the API instructions, I can even leave typos in, right? It'll figure it out. API instructions are found. And then it'll just, you know, sometimes it'll just guess and make up URLs and so on. But it did refer you to the File Manager Programmer Manual, you know, that kind of thing. And so I just feel kind of like for just a product that's out there to the general public for $20 a month, that's not been tweaked or tuned or, you know, augmented in some way to really focus on, and maybe it can't be done, but, you know, that it's not been augmented and focused to do this stuff. Did you think you would see this in your lifetime? I don't know. Maybe I'm easily pleased, but to me, the fact that I can have a conversation in an English-like way and have it infer the correct meaning or pretty close to the correct meaning, you know, a lot of the time is, you know, it shows potential.
I think it's astonishing.
Yeah, I mean, it shows potential. I mean, if you just think of this as the game just started, you know, yeah, I mean, you might say we're in the, you know, the first batter was the first, you know, two decades of AI, you know, or just, I mean, because they just dreamed about what AI could do, right? And some of the scientists 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, were talking about this. But the fact that we have reached critical mass in just a very short period of time, a matter of just less than a decade, right? Just 5-year window. And the thing just went crazy straight up. To me, just says, wow, buckle up your seatbelt, because we can't even imagine where we're going to go from here. I'd say just spend $20. My thought is spend $20 and just play and learn and put this into your workflow. Put this into your workflow, right? I mean, I was having a problem with some networking stuff, and I just said, give me 10 tests that I can do to try to figure this out. And it spit out, you know, a bunch of calls, told me about Wireshark and, you know, and NetStat, and run this and run that, and look at these results. And then if I don't understand what a particular result is, I can come right back to it and say, okay, explain to me in more detail. What is NetStat, right? What's that doing? What does it show? How does it show me the ports that are listening, and so on? And so all of a sudden you have at your fingertips, you know, plus you can blue sky. To me, troubleshooting is like bouncing ideas off of things. And if you learn to ask it the right questions, and especially now that the customization instructions that I showed you earlier, now that the customization instructions are over here and you can customize, right? You can go in there, you don't have to pay the money to do it, but if you want, to me, the $20 is like no brainer. And I just go ahead and went in and told it all this stuff. And I know people say, oh, but look what it's knowing about you. Look what it's learning about you. Well, I just be careful and not put in stuff that, you know, that I'm concerned with, what a privacy thing. But, and I use it all day long for all kinds of other things. I mean, you know, I changed the oil on my Toyota, and I wanted to know how to reset the odometer so that I could, you know, the thing that tells you that you got to, you know, you change the oil and you reset your thing to 0 so that it's going to, the light's going to go off when you need to change your oil again. Yep. Said, here's what you do. Hold this down, do this, do this. Now it can hallucinate. You know, I wouldn't say, how do I do surgery? But, you know, it helps in all kinds of ways. You can use this thing for negotiations. You can just go in and talk to it. You know, I've got to negotiate with this manager on something or other, or you have a car accident. You say, what are the kinds of things that I should be doing, you know, to make a claim, or, you know, or it's just everything. It's all kinds of stuff that you can ask it. And again, it just kind of gives you, it's like I was listening to Mark Andreessen on a podcast, and he said, this is the new search of the internet. Because once this thing gets zeroed in, right, and we get much less hallucinations, how many times, when I saw Google appear, right, and I just was amazed, weren't you? When you could just like search all these documents across the world instantly, and I didn't care that I had to go through reams of junk and burrowing down, and I just learned that a Google search was going to be about 3 searches. And the first one was to get the right terms. And so I'd look through documents and go, oh, there's a term, that term, I should put that in the search. So it's iterative, right? I go for my next search. Oh, I learned a little bit something else. I go for a next search. I'm perfecting my search until I get the right results. Same thing here. You're prompting, right? Only here, you don't have to, like, you can continue the chat just like we did. We talked about where's the delay go, right? And so on. And who wrote, Sam, can you, does this person who's written the API to go back and forth to ChatGPT, are they open to sharing that? Are they?
No, not really. He said if you guys want it, pay up.
Yeah. So I was just curious because I haven't gone to that point, and I know you can get the developer API and it costs you so many cents per call that you make, like 1/100th of a penny, for this and that, and it costs you like 3 times as much money to call ChatGPT-4 as 3.5, because the ChatGPT-4, you saw how it kind of sluggishly answered, and then if you switch and you go over here to and really you ask things. You ask things, if you really want to use it wisely, you ask things that are real obvious and easy at ChatGPT 3.5, right? So I don't know, what's an obvious, thing that you could ask about, what is, let's see, what is FHIR? And I won't even bother to correct this. What is FHIR? And I want to know, let me just mess up the prompt. No, it's history, the general concept, and show me an example of it. Obviously, that wasn't a really great prompt, but right there. So, and you see how fast it was. Fast healthcare interoperability resources is a standard for HL7, 2014 replacement. Again, those dates could be off a little bit. HL7 version 2 and CDA, general concept, modular components, resources, and then get patient, whatever. And so then I could say, well, then I learn about it, right? And I can say, well, give me an example of a patient record in the JSON format. Okay. Now, that's GPT 3.5. I wouldn't do this kind of stuff with 3.5 because 4 is so much more powerful. But this just shows you, the speed of the response. So that's why people who just do general kind of stuff, they go with 3.5. But when you need it to think or reason, for example, you can go in here. Let's go make a new chat, and it's got your chat history over here, right? So that you can go back to the chats. The thing is, the context won't be remembered for long. So if you're going to have a session with it, don't start and then go to lunch, because when you come back, it won't remember the context. So that's one of the things with LLMs right now, is they don't have history, long history. So they can't carry on a discussion, a deep philosophical discussion over days. They can't do it. But they're saying this RAG technique, right, where you pass retrieval method. Well, if they can start getting it to where it can take the context and store it back out again, now you've given the LLM memory so that you can have sessions that span over time. Because right now they have a window, and it's based on tokens, and I don't know all the inner workings, but the larger the window, the more it can keep in its mind. It's kind of like the size of its, its context. And the bigger the window, like some of them are like 16K, 25K, 64K. That's where Claude is. I think Claude is like 64K. I think ChatGPT 4 is 25K or something. Anyway, that determines, like, the more it can keep in its head, the better it can analyze a situation to some extent. But you can just do scenarios like, I've heard of people asking it questions like, I put, uh, oh, here we go. Let's try this. I put a quarter. I put a coin. I put a coin in a cup and went to the back of the house, set the cup on the counter, and fell asleep. When I woke, I knocked the cup over. What happened? Yeah. I don't know.
That's
It could have
funny.
stayed. It could have stayed in the cup or fell out. And so you can go in. It can reason through things. It knows about gravity. It knows about, and you can pose to it deep questions, asking you to literally like follow through this dialogue. Tell it a big long story, and then tell them what happened next. And it's staying with you, right? And so this is where GPT-4 is radically better than 3.5. You could easily fool 3.5. It's like the old shell game. You have the guy that you watch him, and under which cup is it? And he's moving the cups all around. 3.5 had no idea. 4 can keep up with it pretty well. And what about 5 and 6 and 7 and 8, right? And so, who knows what's going to happen. Now, your point, Sam, about taking huge corporations and lots of money to develop this is true early on. I don't know, though, that that's going to be true coming later on, because like this company, I remembered it now, the term is sparsify. Neural Magic has this focus on sparsification. So they basically take these databases, which are huge with trillions of tokens and pointers and all kinds of connections, and they found that they can go into that tree and trim out bunches of them because they're just, the way it works is it's got all these terms and it just points to all of them. And then it's proximity. And where does it find things in proximity? So that if you mention a person's name and that they're the president and something else, it then gets a context because it's got all these pointers to all these things. And in knowledge space, they're close together because that person, anyway, they found they can go into those databases, and there's a lot of connections that aren't really that important or that useful to the results, and they can trim them out. So they can take what would be a very large database to get the kind of performance, and they can shrink it way down, and it still gives them like 97% of the performance. So there are things coming, right, that I think are going to give small companies and innovators, right, a chance to just, explode on the scene. And so I don't know that I would rule out OpenAI. I don't know, especially when you got so many people chasing it, and collaborative and so on. And you're right, they're not all quote open. I'm sure if you looked at the meta details of Llama, but then there's Code Llama that's been trained off of Llama, and it's supposed to be pretty good at code. Most of the open source models compare themselves to 3.5. They don't compare themselves to 4. Most of them don't even try. So 4 is that far ahead, but I know they all know they got to
Do you
keep ahead of
guys
it.
remember the mock kernel?
The what?
Mock kernel.
No, I don't.
Well, all the oh boy, why am I getting an echo?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, anyway, there's a mock kernel in Wikipedia you could look at, and it's a project in the 80s and 90s done by Carnegie Mellon to take all the world's best experts in writing operating system and write an open source operating system kernel. And they produced one, and it was open source. It's on GitHub. It's still on GitHub, and you can download it and use it. And the mock kernel, which became a microkernel, is the basis of it's all the Unix, all the Linux, VSD, all of the Apple products. Center is a mock kernel now, and the head researcher who led this from Carnegie Mellon left Carnegie Mellon, and since then has been one of the chief operating system people at Microsoft. So you've got to believe Windows has probably got the mock kernel as well. And so it's an example of a project which was on open source and had proprietary, it was included in proprietary systems and open source systems and all kinds of things. A real example of an open source project, which
Uh-huh.
which was both open and proprietary and had a wide impact.
I looked
Are
it
you
up there.
saying mock? Are you saying MOCK or MACH?
MACH.
Yeah, did you guys look at
MACH.
the shared screen? I asked it about mock kernel. It told us about Carnegie Mellon
Yeah.
and I said, do you think there are parallels in the efforts in
OpenAI. Ask it about OpenAI.
Yeah, I did. I asked it and it told me that what's on the screen. And I'm saying, from what you know about mock kernel, do you think there are parallels in the efforts to create open LLMs, open source LLMs? Play out 3 scenarios in order of
About
what
three.
you.
Three.
What's that? Oh yeah, it should be a 3. It probably would reason. It would probably deduce it, but you're right. I told you earlier, don't do that, right? Play out 3 scenarios in order of what you think is most likely that might take place. Okay. I hope you guys, just from seeing this little bit, just go and start having fun, because it's just fun. You can have deep philosophical discussions and learn about concepts that you had never heard of before, because it'll say, oh, that reminds me of this, and it'll bring up some concept. I'm not going to take its word for everything, but I know enough to know, let me check and see if, let me call their bluff on that, see if that's real. Scenario 1, community driven. Just as mock had a foundational piece, it could serve as the basic framework for numerous applications in legal tech, from contract analysis. Scenario 2, fragmentation and specialization. Corporate takeover and enclosed ecosystem. And then you can ask it, expound on scenario 3, right? Or how can we block scenario 3? How could society act to block scenario 3, right?
Did you already ask it how to get rid of Cerner and keep?
I asked Bing how to compare OpenAI to VistA as an open source project. And I
Oh,
said, what can OpenAI learn from VistA as an open source project? I put the output of that in the chat.
okay, cool.
it had some good points.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, again, you have to be, this is not for newbies. You don't turn a newbie loose with this. You use this as a paralegal. Just tell them to go out and scarf through all this stuff and bring things back to me, and I'll look through it and I'll make sense of it, right? And if I question anything, I can ask you to clarify, double check yourself. Are you sure about that? There's all kinds of things you can do to try to winnow the answer down. But here, look at this. It says how you're going to beat it. Licensing. Choose a strong copyleft license. Governance models. Strong, transparent governance models include multiple stakeholders, community vigilance, public funding, industry partnerships, legal framework. It's cool, and you guys can use it for way more than just mumps. I mean, for VistA, I don't know. That's why I'm so excited about it. That's why I kind of like just go around evangelizing about it, because to me, now is the perfect time to be getting comfortable with it and injecting it into much of what you do, because you're not going to be replaced by this. Now, I don't worry about being replaced by anybody at 70, but but for the younger people, I'm not going to be replaced by this. I'm going to be replaced by the person that can use this. And to me, that's why I would really like to see, I don't know how in the VistA community outside the VA I don't know if we have people that are deep into the, AI world that can stand up these models and help us, with building interfaces to them. But to me, this is like, wow. So I don't know, just some thoughts, some things to play with. And I'll leave you with one. Is George still there?
Timpson, Lily,
Yeah.
or
George, you still there?
George Timpson? Let me look.
Yeah, George Timpson.
Which George? No, George is not here. No.
He's not here. Okay. Hang on a minute. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna pull in DIM. I'm gonna grab DIM. Whoops, that's no good. Let me see here. That's not very good. Trying to think of a program that I could a fairly robust. Can anybody think of a robust program in VistA? Not like killer, but it's pretty well self-contained in one program, because this simple interface won't let me piece together several. But can somebody think of a fairly simple?
XLF JSON.
Okay, zload XLF JSON. I don't know if I have I probably don't have that. I don't think my thing is that current. No. No, mine's not.
Try XLF STR.
Okay, say it again.
XLF STR, the string library.
XLF. Oh yeah, string, right? The string functions. So let's do here. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, that's a good idea. All right, let's do that. Let's just grab that. All right, and then let's say, all right, you are a mumps expert. And let me just tell it. I probably don't even have to tell this because I think it's still, no, it's not using the, let's go back. Let's make sure that the discussion is one that is engaging. Wait a minute, hold on. Where's new chat? See, it's timed out. That advanced beta thing, timed out. So I want to go have a new chat and get out of here. Here we go. Turn on the beta. Okay, you are a mumps. I won't have to say ANSI. You are a mumps expert, and I have a VistA mumps program that I would like to understand. Please give an analysis of the interfaces that it contains, how you call them, and what do they do. Here is the code. Okay, so I just pasted it in. Let's see what it says. All right, bro, let's dive into this VistA code. So that's all part of my customization. I like it to be a little more informal. All right, so function overview, up, converts a string, X to uppercase. Now I could be reading some of this, right? Just pulling it out of the comments, right? I mean, it may not be, but the fact, right? It's giving me various entry points, how to call it, some text, converts it to this, shows the various calls. And remember, ChatGPT appeared to the public in what, November 21? Is that right? Right around there? So I think we're coming up, wasn't it 21? I think it was. Might have been 22. No, it was 21. Anyway, we're coming up on less than 2 years being out, and look what it's able to do. All right. Just can you write a mumps program to prompt the tester for data, and then call each API showing the results on the screen. Be sure to use dir for the reading of the input. Look at that. So instead of writing a call to each of them, right, what did it do? Instead of setting a separate API for each, it just said, and let's see did it use indirection to call the APIs? No, it didn't. Look what it did. It said, if it's strip, do this. If it was this, do this. Interesting. Okay, so let's do this. Let's say, can you think of a way to shorten the code by making use of indirection in calling the APIs? Now, I don't know that I got it right. Let's see. It did, set it up. enter additional parameters. If it's strip, repeat or split. Use in direction. So what do you think? Well, I guess people are tired. Well, anyway.
Hey, Greg, I was just going to say that that's an awesome overview. Probably, I'm thinking this is a great opportunity for monks expertise because you definitely need the expertise. So people could generate, novice could generate monk's code and then have someone like Sam or yourself look at it and review it and test it. So that's probably one thing. The way I used it was interesting. I took like a USMLE type clinical scenario, excuse me, and put it in there because the professor would just, like this is in med school, they would just give you the answer A, B, C, or D, or E, and I would ask ChatGPT. And it's very to explain all the answers as well as the correct answer. And I'd say 8 or 9 times out of 10 it would be correct in this description.
Right.
So as a tutor, rather than going to Google to find out which disease and what the clinical application, this, I mean, it's fitted out in seconds. It's just incredible. But like I said, originally, and I haven't had time, but I've actually asked it to give me the details and the code to spin up an Azure instance of Linux, like Ubuntu, and then implement VistA and EWD and Yoda. And it gave me all the code to actually test it, to basically put it into the terminal in an Azure system. And like I'm just actually starting that, so the timing is really good. But I think there's an article that just came out recently, and it says introducing AWS Health Scribe, automatically generate clinical notes from patient clinical conversations using AWS Health Scribe. So now you can create, I mean, it's going to be able to take all the legwork out of transcribing patient interactions, and then obviously you can review it. But for a doctor or physician to be able to save time in getting the content correct for the notes is going to be, I think, very powerful as well. And then I just
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just came across another article. I'll put this article in the chat. But another article that just came across that said that ChatGPT is dead because Bard has so much money behind it that ChatGPT is still the source to go to, but Bard, like Google, is just kind of waited for all the hype to go away with ChatGPT, and then Bard's going to come out big time. I'll put that article in there too. But I think you're right on. I mean, some of the stuff that you introduced me to in those plugins, because I'm using that. I didn't try the clinical USMLE questions on Chat 4. I did it on 3.5, and it wasn't quite as accurate. But 4
will blow you away at how it can reason. How it can reason is the thing that's really cool. And
Well, I did pay the $20 to have that, but I think it's so much more fast compared to like searching and trying to go through PubMed and trying to figure out what these. I mean, we're getting a fire hose of. I mean, they probably condense, 4 or 5 weeks of university undergrad in in one lecture. It's so condensed. It's just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So
with this chat, it's like you have your personal tutor right there.
right. And you can go, so for example, you go to the plugins, right? And you go here and you enable like ask your PDF, and then there's prompt perfect. Then I put on web pilot, right? So I can go in here and say, and you can put on Expedia, so you can make plans. You can say, I want to go to this town, but is there another nearby airport where I can get a cheaper fare? And it just goes using the Expedia plugin, and it'll tell you, no, don't fly into this city, fly into Orlando. It's only an hour-and-a-half drive, and the rental cars are cheaper.
Yeah, no, I think this is big with the APIs too. I wanted to mention that you could probably cache, like you could basically set it up so your APIs go, because I have the developer now too, and I haven't had time to look at that, but in the tokens and the cost, but if you think about it, you could API into ChatGPT and retrieve once, and then just cache that same frequently asked question, so you're not continually using the ChatGPT to, it'll cost you a lot. But as a programmer, if you could do an API into ChatGPT for the common questions that are being asked, or make your interface so that the checkboxes that the user would check to get information from ChatGPT would, in a clinical situation.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much integration there. I wish we had, a week to kind of figure this out. But I think I would be really interested in joining, a group that starts to look at how to use AI. But I think that the subject matter expertise, whether it's the coding, you need to still have that expertise at this point.
We need, for the VistA community, we need to have some of us be a part of a group where they are looking to make application of open source models, and they've got the chops to do it. Because boy, you listen to the data scientists. I went on a Twitter space with a bunch of data scientists talking about this stuff, and this is a whole nother universe. The things they talk about, the things that they do, and say, it's a whole nother world, a huge other world. The data scientists and all the techniques they use, and the vector databases, and you just, so I just feel like that's what we need.
Yeah, no, well, one of my graduate degree was basically data science, probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh.
And I looked at neuro-linguistic programming, and I understand it very, very well. But here's the kicker. What was it, you that had said the Stanford group that went out and talked to selling Stanford? Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no. Well, here's the problem with the VistA community. Like I said initially in my introduction, the way I see this going down, because I'm totally against basically Epic going 60% of the medical records and VistA not getting the due diligence and the credibility that it deserves. But I see what you're saying there. Forget the distractions. Forget that Cerner's out there in Oracle. If we opened up clinics, or really what I'm planning to do is open up clinics and making it a private and going internationally, because I'm being introduced to over 900 at my stage in life, many physicians that are coming up. And I think it's also an educational tool, but I think forget the distractions and just get it a groundswell, like crowdfunding, a groundswell of VistA implementations, and the clinics would be the best way to do that. And if they're all over the place and you start getting that recognition, but what I need to do is I need to stand up a VistA to be able to sell it to the money people. I need to get that set up. So between not having the time and not having the group, if someone can help me get the VistA system set up on a FedRAMP compliant, HIPAA type of thing, then we're probably in a position where I can get the funding to start opening up a clinic and just getting one going, and then it'll be cloud-based. I can see it going across the world, really. But I start real small, which is just get one set up, and then I can get the crowdfunding going.
Yeah,
Or even just,
there you can hang around. Have you been on the hard-headed groups?
yeah, no, I mean, and I'm using ChatGPT to explain. You know how you say you can't put so much in it. Well, what I did for that one article that I sent you it was an article that says something about explaining what's missing. Well, it's such a complicated article. I tried to paste the whole thing into ChatGPT, and I said, well, listen, explain this article, give me a brief summary, tell me what's going on. And it said it's way too big. So then I pasted it in chunks, and I said, okay, continue on with this article, and then continue on with this part. And then at the end, I said, now summarize the whole thing as in the conversation and tell me what's going on. And that article got synthesized that way because it was too big.
You need to get in your Chat GPT and ask about federal regulation of the use of medical records and payments. Because,
we should ask
I mean,
ChatGPT how to solve the problem to become more recognized. I mean, I know internationally it's going to be a big hit because of the developing countries just can't afford anything but.
Right.
And if you've set up the expertise, and that's what I'm in my 60s. So why am I going to med school? It's because I know that the credibility is going to be there with that MD degree, and I'm going to be able to get this off the ground. But I'm still 2 years away. I mean, I'm just going into clinicals in January.
Carl, if you don't listen to what I'm telling you, you're going to waste a lot of time and money.
Oh yeah, well that's why I'm maybe.
That's why you really need to look into this meaningful use business and payment systems and all this sort of stuff, because its barriers are astronomically in the way of doing something like this in the United States.
Yeah, no, well, and I would just say that I would use ChatGPT to figure that out. but at the same time, I would I think
talk to Ignacio Valdez.
Oh yeah. No, I with astronaut and what he's doing, I agree. There's so much potential here and so much talent.
Yeah, but look what he's come up against.
Yeah, but that's a distraction, and he's going after the wrong. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would agree with the distraction.
I say you don't know for sure. Go do what I told you to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, anyway,
no, I'm looking forward to. I mean, if there's, I don't have the power right now, or really the time to try to organize something. But I definitely would be interested in being a part of this community a little bit more. I will be now. I mean, remember, I was 10 years ago. I don't know if you remember. I was speaking. I said, "What program language, can we organize the UI in?" And I guess Rob Tweed gave up on it. I mean, it's still there, QEW and stuff, but I guess it's just too, I'm not sure what's going on. That's why I'm kind of getting back into it.
Moved on and done a lot of innovation, and it changes very fast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I agree with Greg. The distraction is not to worry about any of the details. The funding in privately will take care of it. And if I could explain more thoroughly why the benefit of quality of life, I mean, that's why also I'm going to be a physician. I've been researching it since 2013. And both Karen and I, being at this stage in our life and being extremely blessed with great health, and she's 70. She's working 2 jobs, public health, just expertise, there is a secret there. And it's not really a secret. It's just, if you understand biomolecular science and you understand data, and you put everything together, and then you understand how the body works, you can make quality of life better. And, we've got diabetes epidemics, we've got, obesity epidemics, and it's the Western world. So there's a huge fight, no doubt. I mean, big food, big pharma, everything's a big fight. But I still think it starts small, but it starts with the expertise that this community has, and that's why I commended you, Nancy, and even Sam and the others for being here. This, hanging in there. It's I want to really contribute, and I think I can. It's just I'd hate to see it die anytime soon because of what Roger Baker said, and that that's so true. I mean, what he was saying. I think if albeit if Trump gets in there, you could probably make a change. But it's still the politics is politics. That's a tough thing. I just think it's a distraction if you can muster the private side of it and show the difference. And both Karen and I have the expertise to show the difference and how to improve the quality of life. That a lot of people, especially women, in Karen's case, you'd be just knocked over as to what she's got organized. So anyways, how to get that all into a package, I'd be really interested in talking about. Anyways, thanks so much, Greg. I think that was an excellent, enthusiastic, and I'm right behind you. It's the time to be looking at it and not to be afraid of it. I used it to write a poem. I used it to, people on WhatsApp in the medical school, we're talking 600 students, they're using it to answer questions that come up,
Sure.
for IMCQ questions, or they're using it to write appeal letters. It's just, I mean, it's a phenomenal.
Yeah, it is. This is like 1994 all over again. And that was the time. That was the time to be, playing with it. So I'll encourage everybody to do that. Thanks, Nancy, for the slot, the extra slot there. I hope it helps some people. I don't know who's still hanging in here, but I'm ready to go. So